It's almost like instead of going out, you're attracting a lot of stuff to you. And it's so easy because it's not easy, but it's just a different type of lead generation. It's extremely powerful. Hi, everybody. This is Jose Luis Morales. Welcome back to the Morales Group Show. This is episode number 88. Today, we've got a very special guest. His name is Vlad Plotnikov. He's a real estate investor. He's based out of Vegas. He does house flipping, and he also does buy and hold. One of the most impressive things about him is that he's a young guy. I'm not going to ruin it for you, so I'll let him tell us his age. Welcome to the show, Vlad. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
So if you wouldn't mind just starting off with what is your age and who is Vlad and how did you get involved in real estate?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So my name is Vlad. I'm 22 years old. I'm out here in the Vegas market. I started off real estate after I was playing football for a long time throughout my life, and then I played a little bit in college. And after I stopped playing there, I was still going to college, but kind of didn't have a purpose for, what else I was doing. So I was searching for something to do outside of just going to class. And real estate was what I ended up liking the most.
What did your first deal look like? Was it something that like you flipped, or was it like a buy and hold, or what did that look like?
Yeah. So my first ever deal was actually a wholesale deal. I wanted to flip. I wanted to get into the flipping game. Like everybody, started off listening to podcasts. And I actually ended up hearing one of the local flippers here in Vegas, Ryan Pineda. Some of your viewers might know him, a big flipper out here in Vegas. And he was talking about flipping 100 homes a year in Vegas. And I was like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. I want to do that. So I ended up reaching out to him. I actually ended up at one of his meetups. He used to host like free meetups around town. This was just a local kind of real estate meetup. And he told me, you want to get into flipping? Because I told him, hey, I'm so young. I'm 19 at the time. Want to get into flipping, no money, no connections, kind of what do I do? And he was like, hey, you should start wholesaling, just get really good at finding deals. And then you could sell it to myself or anybody in this room. And at that point, you could kind of get your feet wet. So I was like, perfect, let's do it. Very next day after that meetup, started door knocking for wholesale deals, distressed properties, finding stuff with equity. And my first deal was actually a deal where I door knocked. I realized it was a deal, but I didn't know how to close it. So I actually brought in Ryan, reached back out to him and said, hey, I've got this deal. Like you said, you told me to go out there and hustle. So I went, hustled. Can you help me close it? And, we could partner on it. I don't even care to make money on it as long as you teach me. And so that was kind of the beginning of our relationship and the beginning of my, real estate journey.
And then what type of list was this? I know that you said like motivated or high equity motivated seller. Was just like a pre-foreclosure lead, or was it something else?
The crazy thing is I was door knocking mostly tax delinquent properties. And so people that find out taxes, but this was not on any list. I was actually door knocking one of the neighbors' houses. And then I saw that this was kind of a distressed house. I was like, hey, I'm already here. Might as well. By the way, that tax delinquent property, the owner told me, no, I'm not looking to sell it. We're good. So I was like, okay, well, I'm already here. Might as well, door knock a couple other doors. And this was just a random house next door. He was not on any list, but he definitely was motivated. He had a lot of different stuff that was going on in his life at the time.
The cool thing about it is that you took action as well, too. A lot of people give them advice like go door knock or go do this, and they just kind of sit on that advice and never do anything. You mind me asking what your first deal made you in terms of income?
Yeah. So that first deal, it was really, really tough deal. The guy owed a lot more than he thought. There was a bunch of liens on the property that came up in the escrow process. So I actually didn't make much money at all. I think I made just short of $2,000 partnering with Ryan. But the biggest thing for me at that point was realizing, hey, this is possible. And if it wasn't for all of these nuances of he owed too much and there's, this and that going on, I would have made a lot more money, and I was projected to make a lot more money. So I was like, I need to go back and replicate this on my own. And next time it's going to be a different ballgame.
The other thing is your attitude about it was just like, hey, I don't really care if I make any money. I just want to learn, which to me, that's kind of how I started, because the knowledge is what's most important. Once you have the knowledge, you can apply it to anything. And then obviously you can do a lot more. For some of the newer viewers, they might think like, wow, knocking on doors, like, what do I say to them? You mind me asking what something like that would look like? Like if I was a neighbor to that property, because it just, hey, I'm a buyer, I'm looking to buy houses, or what would that?
I never wanted to lie. And I was obviously a young guy. So what I would do is I would actually door knock. And I would say, hey, how's it going? My name's Vlad. And I work with a group of local real estate investors. and we buy properties here in Las Vegas. Would you be potentially interested? Or I think it was more along the lines of, hey, we buy in this particular neighborhood, and I was just driving by. Your house looks like something that we might be interested in. Would you be interested in an offer? And at that point, then I wasn't saying, hey, I'm the buyer, because obviously I'm 19 years old. I don't want to deceive anybody. Now I am the buyer. Now I can tell anybody, hey, I'm the buyer. I'm the real deal. But at that point, I wasn't. So I was like, hey, I work with local, real estate investors, a group of them, not just one. And, at that point, they were a little bit more kind of open to it.
What would you say a lesson that you learned in that deal was, besides like, hey, look, there are deals there, maybe like a do's and don'ts, like, yes, do this, don't do that type of thing?
Yeah, for sure. So I think on that particular deal, it was just building rapport with the seller. Like, make sure you build rapport. I came from like a part-time job before where I sold suits. I worked at Hugo Boss. So I was selling, pretty expensive suits, and I had good clientele and stuff like that. I had like the regulars, but my best clients were always the people that I built the best rapport with. They were the people that I knew their wife liked that particular tie or something like that. So they would come in the store and I'd be like, oh, like you bought this last time. You would love this. This would match. And so for them, they wanted to work with me a little bit more because they're like, hey, this guy actually cares. This guy actually remembers. So I think the same thing applies to any type of sales, business, whether that's you're a real estate agent, real estate investor. If you can build that rapport with them and let them know like you really care, that's something really important. So on that first deal, even though I didn't really know too much of the nuances of the contract and how to do all of that, I knew I had to build the rapport. And so I was in the guy's living room, actually, like listening to his story, like being a very active listener, trying to find ways that we kind of related. I lived in that area of town as well, or, so on and so forth. And once you can kind of build that connection, at that point, that's when you really get the deal.
It's so funny because a lot of people think sometimes that there's all these magical sales techniques, but you can get so far just by listening and basically really listening to understand what their situation is. I'm sure that's not the only time somebody has sold you a house because they felt more comfortable with you than maybe somebody else that's just going in there trying to make a quick buck or whatever. So because obviously I know a couple of people your age that want to get into flipping, but one is they haven't gone out to take a look at deals. And two, once they actually find a deal, like, how do you know if it's a deal or not? Like, how do you underwrite it, or what do you look for?
You always make money on the buy in real estate. I mean, the big misconception with a lot of newer people, and I know it's kind of maybe my misconception as well, was, you make money based on how well you do the renovations and stuff like that. But that's never the case. That you make money on the buy. How good and deep of a discount did you buy it at? Where when you do the renovation, that's when you can make profit. So knowing the ARV, knowing the after repair value is super, super important. Making sure that, you don't stretch it, being very conservative. I'm very conservative on all of my estimates for, what it's going to be worth once it's renovated. So that way, I'm not reaching or anything like that. Because at the end of the day, right now, I know the market has been very hot. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, it's going to be worth 400, but it's like the comps say 350. But for me, if I'm underwriting it, if the comps are selling at 350, then, I'm going to comp it at 350. And that's a good way to, stay safe, and everything else is just a bonus. Obviously, calculating holding costs, money costs are super important. But unless you're coming in this, cash heavy and you're buying all these properties cash, you're likely going to get a hard money loan, which, those can get really expensive if, you hold it for a long time. So making sure you budget that up front is super important. Obviously, the renovation costs are very, very important. And it's easy to misjudge how much a renovation is. So making sure you get in with the right contractors, making sure that, you get multiple bids from different contractors so that you kind of know what to expect when you get into it. And then at that point, it's just really numbers. What do we need to buy it at, with knowing that this is the renovation, knowing that these are going to be the holding costs. This profit is what we want, and this is the after repair value. So that's the way to evaluate a deal by deal.
What about rules of thumb? Like for me, when I'm looking at a flip opportunity, sometimes we'll look at 85% of after repair value minus any repairs. Or if we're trying to burr it, meaning keeping it, we'll go 75 or even 70% of ARV minus repairs. Do you have any rule of thumbs for any type of the values, or even for estimates for contractors as well too?
We have a kind of a Rolodex of properties that we've done. So Now it's like material costs change, but right now we've been, in terms of contracting, we're probably sitting at right around $28 to $30 a square foot for a full renovation here in Las Vegas. So usually I'm budgeting, if it's a full renovation, I'm budgeting around $30 a square foot. Plus, if there's any major stuff, that's going to be separate. That's not going to be included in that price per square foot calculation. So pools, ACs, and roofs, they're going to be extra. They're going to be plus onto that. So that's kind of the rule of thumb on that. In terms of buying, I don't really have a rule of thumb. I know that here in Vegas, I've had buyers on wholesale deals that will buy up to 85% minus repairs, especially right now, market is hot. But for me, it usually comes down to kind of net profit, and I kind of work my way back from that. I plug it into a calculator really quick. I have a flip calculator I have. And usually I'm trying to make 10% of the purchase price at least, but no less than $20,000 on a flip. So that's here in Vegas. And our purchase prices are really low, So obviously I try to get much better deals than that. Usually we're gravitating right around 40 grand per flip. I like to buy, like I said, a conservative and deeper. So that can help with that. But usually, like I said, I'm trying to make around 10% of the purchase price. So $300,000 house, looking to make about 30 grand on it.
Tell me about a time where maybe the flip didn't work out as planned and what went wrong with it.
So far, everything's been pretty smooth for the most part in terms of actual flips, except for right now. We actually have one right now that we underestimated the rehab cost. We thought it was a small little townhome, no big deal. We'll knock it out. But it had, one thing that went wrong and a couple things. So now all of a sudden we're a little bit over budget on the rehab. Also, just the fact that I kind of overestimated the ARV as well. So those are just a recipe for disaster when it comes to that. Probably won't be a loser. We haven't had a loser yet. This one probably won't be, but it definitely, went down from what I was expecting to profit on it to potentially, making a little bit of money or even having to break even on it, which, is never fun, but it's a learning lesson.
What about selecting the right contractor? Like, any tips there? Do you have family that's in the contracting business? Do you have friends, or how did you go about finding the right contractor, and how important is that piece of the puzzle?
Very, very important. It's probably the hardest part of flipping houses is working with contractors and working with people, making sure everybody is on the same page. Having the wrong contractor can definitely cause you a lot of headaches. We had that on one of our deals where they just were not responsive. It took them way too long to get the project done. We just were never on the same page. And it was the first and last time I worked with them, but it was also kind of a referral. So I didn't love it at all. But referrals are usually good, either from other flippers or maybe agents even, they know a contractor. Those can be, great. Social media has been really great. So if you can build out your social media, that's awesome. One of my current contractors on 2 of my flips actually is from social media. He just saw me, reached out. He was like, hey, I do some renovations here in Vegas. Would you be interested? He came out, did a very competitive bid. And I was like, hey, I'll let you get a swing at it. So he's been doing a pretty good job. So social media is great. Referrals. Another kind of sneaky trick that I have acquired is dumpster driving. So we all know kind of driving for dollars, but driving for dumpsters is a little bit of a different game. You're driving by, a lot of these properties that have the blue dumpster out front, meaning somebody's doing the renovation. And so, if you see somebody doing the renovation, you just come by, knock on the door, see if the GC's there, ask them, obviously with permission, if you could maybe walk by the property throughout. And there's 2 benefits to that. You get to meet the GC right there and then, get their contact info, and you also get to see the kind of renovation and the kind of work they do. Is this somebody that you would want? Is this what you would want your flip to look like? So that's a little hack right there.
It's funny because sometimes the best people are the ones that are already doing it. And if that guy already building or doing renovations on property in Vegas, that might be like the best person. Not only that, but you can kind of keep up with the project a little bit as well too. What about money? Like, I know a lot of people get stuck on the money part. Like, I had a cousin who told me, well, it's easy for you to do flips because you have money. But the reality is that I believe that it's more of a mindset type of thing. And I think that money is easy to find if you're good at finding deals. How are you going about financing them? And how has your mindset changed in regards to that? Because I imagine at the beginning, you were like, hey, I don't have any money. So how has that developed over time?
Money is a big limiting belief for a lot of people in the beginning. I mean, rightfully so. These houses are expensive and you're expected to buy them cash, as the investor. So people are like, no way, I don't have that kind of money. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. You can either get a hard money loan and have somebody help you with the down payment, which is a lot more manageable. Here in Vegas, that could be anywhere from like 50, 70,000, which is Still not a little bit, but it's a lot more manageable than, buying a $400,000 house cash. You could, partner with somebody. That's a good way to do it. If you can get really good at finding deals, somebody will fund the entire thing and you could split it with them 50-50. There's a bunch of people that will be willing to do that. It's a really good deal. Somebody will fund you and get you that cash, because cash is, like, once again, easy to find. You just find either another flipper or maybe private money lender that will fund it, and you split the profits at that point. Or you could go the private money route and actually have somebody with money and give them a % return on that investment.
And then what would you say in regards to finding deals? Obviously, there's door knocking. Is that pretty much all you do, or what would be some of the different ways of attracting deals to you?
Door knocking. I started off door knocking, but door knocking is it's hard to scale by yourself. I mean, you definitely can. You just have to be very consistent. I realized that I didn't want to door knock every day, especially here in Vegas. Very, very hot.
Yeah.
No way. Very hot. But door knocking is great. I think it's great. Very targeted door knocking. What I like is cold calling, texting. We've done some PPC as well. So Google Ads marketing. I don't do any of it myself. I have virtual assistants that do it. They're cold calling, they're texting. I'm just working with, essentially the warm lead at that point. So cold calling and texting are very affordable kind of marketing avenues. If you're getting started, I would encourage you to look into it. That's a great way to do it. PPC and maybe direct mail are a little bit more costly, a little bit more money upfront, but those can be great ROIs as well.
What about holding? Are you only flipping right now, or are you holding properties as well too? And what do you look for if you're holding any of them? What do you look for in rentals?
Yeah, for sure. So right now we've only been flipping. All of last year, like I said, I've only wholesaled. This year was a big year for us to transition to flipping. So I started flipping a lot more this year, and moving into next year is going to be a lot more BRRRRs, a lot more rentals. And for me, personally, I know everybody kind of has a different strategy. For me, I want to hold stuff that is newer, something that is in a good neighborhood, that next to good schools, something that I could put a good tenant in and have a nice high rent, less headaches. I can definitely be okay with flipping the D and C areas. It is what it is, but I really wouldn't want to hold rentals there. Me personally, I know there's definitely money to be made there, but for me, I just kind of like peace of mind, and I feel like a more quality tenant. So anything that's a little bit more new, lower maintenance in terms of renovation, stuff like that would be perfect.
Now, I want to go back. You said something about virtual assistants, that you don't do any of that. One of the things, and this is more of a business owner tip and even a real estate agent tip, like most real estate agents think that they've got to do everything themselves. And even like some business owners think that they've got to do everything themselves. One of the things that I look up to or admire about wholesalers, flippers, is that especially a lot of the young ones get started early with delegating a lot of stuff. Where would somebody go if they wanted to hire a good virtual assistant? And how do you make sure that you select good ones versus maybe ones that aren't that good?
If you want to hire your own, you could use Upwork or Fiverr. Those are great ways to do it. And by your own, I mean somebody that is going to work and answer directly to you. And a good way to judge them is you have them send you a video. In your application, have them send you a video of them answering questions, and you'll be able to see, how good they are speaking, and are they even going to send that video? Because a lot of people just apply, but those people that take the time, if they take the time to send you a 2-minute video, obviously they're committed to answering those questions. So that's a good start. And then at that point, you could listen, make sure that they have good English, make sure that their accent are heavy, or so on and so forth. I've gone that route. I actually don't prefer that route. Simply because I don't like managing virtual assistants myself. As soon as something's up with, the dialer or something like that, or their connection goes out, I have to answer that. And, I'm kind of the manager for them. So instead, what I like using is a cold calling company. They, essentially hire them out for you. They manage them for you. All you do is, obviously you train them to your specifications. You do quality control, making sure that they do the right things. But in terms of like dialers and lists and all of that, they upload it for you. Obviously, you pull the list yourself. You figure out where you want them to call, what time and stuff like that. But it's a little bit easier to manage them that way. And it's a little bit more expensive, but I feel like it's, really worth it.
Now, the cold callers or some of the lists, are they just general lists for all of Las Vegas, or are they targeted lists as well too?
Both, yeah. So it's a mix of both. Obviously, when you're cold calling, you're kind of mass cold calling almost to an extent. So it's very hard to just do targeted lists. So I would say, do targeted lists, once a week or once every 2 weeks, upload some new data in there for pre-foreclosures, tags delinquents, divorces, all of that good stuff that we know is kind of the motivations. But other than that, I would have the cold callers running through like a absentee owner list, or like somebody that's owned the property for 20 plus years list. And that way, you're getting those motivated people, but you're also getting other people that may not be on any list particularly, but they're getting hit by the cold callers as well.
What about tips on social media? You talked about that's important. That's one of the things that I admire about Ryan. And for a long time, I ignored social media. But then I saw like all the benefits. It's almost like instead of going out, you're attracting a lot of stuff to you. And it's so easy because it's not easy, but it's just a different type of lead generation. It's extremely powerful. Any tips that you'd recommend on social media and kind of what your strategy and vision is behind that?
Ryan was a big catalyst for me doing it as well. I mean, he always preaches the social media. It's huge. And I mean, you could see it with kind of his businesses and stuff like that. The attention is currency. It's crazy. The more eyeballs you have on you, the more money you'll make. And that doesn't have to be you necessarily selling anything to your audience. It will literally bring you business, whether that is lenders that want to work with you, whether that is somebody bringing you a deal. If you post on social media every day, that costs you no money. It costs you some time. But if somebody brings you, a $20,000 flip that you do or a $50,000 flip, all of a sudden you just spend a little bit of time daily, posting this stuff, and all of a sudden you're getting these deals. Once you get a bigger following, that just kind of, builds on itself. It's almost like an exponential kind of growth. Now you're getting so much business from all these different avenues. You meet so many different people as well. Like, you being on social media and you doing this, obviously you saw that I'm posting on social media, so we were able to connect. I've built a lot of great relationships as well that way, because it's kind of weird because a lot of people, they're like, oh, like posting's not cool. You got to work in silence, and do the old school way, which is 100% okay as well. But moving into kind of the future, it's like social media is essentially your business card. It's like your portfolio. Like, is this guy legit? Oh yeah. Like, I'm going down his page, and he's collaborating with all these other people I respect. There's some credibility to him, for sure. So it's really kind of a credibility thing. So I think that's kind of the long-term vision, like building the credibility in the space and just opening up different avenues of like opportunity that, you didn't even know was really possible. So
I read a book called Hook Point, and they talked about that movie producers, when hiring actors for a movie, one of the things that they look at now is how big of a following they have. And if there's like, for example, like two people, they're like neck and neck in regards to talent, or even if the one with the larger following is below in talent, they'll take the one with the larger following. You said something called attention is currency. I realized this maybe like a year ago. And once I did, it really started to make sense. Do you mind elaborating a little bit on that?
Back in the day, whenever you used to get eyeballs on you, you'd have to go on TV. You'd have to go and audition for a show or audition for, go on the morning news. And, that's the way you get your name out there, But now with social media, it's so powerful that you can literally build your brand and build a following just through posting every single day and, doing different collaborations and stuff like that. So just attention is currency, because attention pays. Like you said, there's two different people, but the guy with bigger following, lower talent, they're going to get pushed through, because for the producer, their thoughts are, if we cast this guy, 217,000 people follow him. A lot of people are going to watch this movie, and the attention that he gets is going to bring currency to him. It's going to bring currency to us. It's going to make the movie a lot more successful. And so same thing with us, with business, whether you partner with somebody, you have a big following, all of a sudden they are more inclined to partner with you because you're bringing all of these, essentially customers to them because of your following. So that's huge.
It's interesting because if you look at all the people with like large followings, like the Logan Pauls, and you kind of put two and two together, all the income that they're receiving, not only income, but the opportunities that they're receiving. Like, I think Ryan told me that he's got Giannis following him on TikTok and messaging him as well too. So like you get to meet like some of the most amazing people, and all that comes through social media, which is awesome, which is good that you've realized this early. What about you recommending any platforms for flippers? Anything that maybe works better? Anything like posting like before and after pictures of flips? Or what would somebody typically post if they're looking to get into the real estate game or even the flipping game?
I'd post anywhere and everywhere. First of all, I mean, the platforms are different in a lot of ways. I'd say Instagram is kind of your business card nowadays. A lot of people are going to gravitate to Instagram, especially the people. So for me, I post a little bit of everything. I like to post my own stuff, just life. I like working out. So I'll post like, workout stuff sometime, but that's usually on my stories. It's kind of my day to day. I post before and after pictures on my regular feed of clips. I go out with, I was on Ryan's podcast a little while back. I posted a picture with him. So just stuff like that is cool. That's kind of your, I'd say, business card. I mean, Facebook is great as well. They're like rebranding now. So we'll see what goes on with that. But that's good for your sphere of influence, friends and family. You could actually find a lot of, older people using Facebook. So a lot of your maybe private lenders and stuff can come from there. And then if you want to, get into the kind of the video game, I mean, YouTube is where it's at. A lot of my friends, including, Ryan, my friend Jeremy Mateo, he's a realtor and flipper in Hawaii, but I think he has like 4,000 subscribers on his YouTube. And he always tells me about, the endless opportunities that he gets just from that, so imagine when he grows to 20,000, 50,000, that's going to be crazy. So, and the reason YouTube is huge is because it's the search engine as well in itself. So whenever people look up something like how to get into real estate, if you make a video that ranks, boom, you're just going to pop up and a lot of people are going to kind of get introduced to you. I'd say those are kind of the three major platforms. Oh, and TikTok. TikTok is the new age thing right now. I started off pretty strong on TikTok. I fell off, but we're getting back into it. I racked up like 60,000 followers on TikTok. I was going hard for a little while, but we're bringing back. That one is going to be a great way to get eyeballs on you. You have the opportunity to go viral on any individual video. So if you make something that super interesting, it's more short form, all of a sudden, you could just blast off and kind of go from there.
I love TikTok. TikTok's actually driving traffic to some of the other platforms that we have, like the Instagrams, the YouTubes, and all that, which is awesome. Exactly. I love the fact that you can go viral on anyone. I've started 2 months ago with TikTok, and I'm at 34,000 today. So I'm like, oh, yay.
I got to follow you. I'll find you after we get off right now. I love that.
Yeah, so we're growing. The goal is to get to 1 million by next year. And it's possible with TikTok. I've done a couple of videos where I get like 5,000 followers in a matter of like 48 hours. And I'm just like, what is going on?
I've seen people get like 200,000, 500,000 followers off of one video. Obviously you've got to go pretty viral on that, like 50 million views. But at the same time, if people resonate with you, they like you, it just blasts off out of nowhere. All of a sudden, you have a mini army of like followers that you didn't have before, and the concept is crazy, but one video can change your life. I don't know if you know, you see that guy that was skateboarding with one video changes his life completely. And, will he ever make content that gets him viral again? Who knows? But that one video is crazy. So if you can continuously put stuff out, it could be huge.
He ended up getting a bunch of sponsors, ended up having enough money to buy a house in cash, just a lot of different benefits.
He got a house, cash, he got a free truck, he got that. He's good. He's living good. And he was living in a trailer home before then. So
it wasn't his. I think it was like a family member of his. I think I don't know if he was sleeping on the couch. I don't want to say anything, but it was something like that where he was living with somebody else. Basically. Yeah,
I think it was a trailer parked on somebody else's property, and he was living in that. So crazy, absolutely insane.
One video, that's awesome. Cool. Last thing I wanted to ask you is, well, what about turnaround times for flips? Like, how long are these things taking from the time that you close on them to actually fully complete the transaction? And are there any tips to kind of make the process work a lot faster, or to kind of manage that correctly? Because as you know, time is money, especially when there's holding costs associated, taxes, insurance, hard money.
Here, for me in Vegas, probably 3 to 6 months is usually kind of what we're looking at. So usually about 4 to 5 months is average. Right now we have one that's 5. We've had 3-month flips as well because the market was so hot. You get in, you rehab it, you throw it on the market, offers the same day or even the next day, under contract, sold in 30 days. So that's essentially a 2.5, 3-month flip right there. And it's perfect. It's like, those are the best, but they're not all going to be like that. So I always budget at least 4 months for a flip, 4 to 5 months. And I kind of do it like that. I mean, the biggest way to speed it up is to make sure that everything is done and ready to list, when it should be, making sure the contractors are moving it along, getting contractors in there and ready to work right away. Cause I know a lot of people have, they buy the flip and then they're not able to get contractors in there till a couple of weeks after or something like that. And then the contractor is not available for another week or so because they have other projects. So you're getting started late, and now all of a sudden, you have to eat those holding costs. Sometimes it's unavoidable. Like I just bought one with tenants. I can't do anything. They're supposed to be out on the 30th of November. So it is what it is. We just have to eat the holding costs for now, and kind of go with that. But, making sure your contractors are kind of moving along with the process. And then once it's listed, making sure that, you have somebody coming in there and cleaning up and stuff like that so that it stays in pristine shape and essentially ready for showings. The job doesn't stop, when you renovate it, it stops when you sell it. So you've got to make sure it is in tip top shape. Everything is, rolling through.
Are you guys selling the properties yourself, or do you guys have like a couple of realtor partners that you guys utilize down in that area?
Yeah, so I'm licensed myself. So I actually use somebody at my brokerage. He does the flips for like a flat fee in order to rack up more listings. And then he is also doing like listing referrals. We started doing a lot more of those because like I said, I am licensed, but I never really kind of went hard at it. Per se, because I was like, if it's not a deal, it's not a deal. But now we're converting those to listings, and obviously getting a referral from that. So it's kind of been a pretty big pivot and kind of a win-win.
If you're talking to that many people, it's like might as well capitalize on it. Obviously, these people want to sell. Maybe they don't want to sell at that price, but they're good. And then the last thing is, do you ever do any like contractor guarantees? Like meaning like they guarantee that they have it finished on a certain day, or is there any way to kind of try to keep them accountable?
I don't do like a contractor guarantee, but I have them sign. They send me their bid. We accept the bid, and I send out a contract to them, which says, you say you're going to get started on this day and you're going to finish on this day. For every day that you're late, you're going to be deducted $100 from your final check. If they're 10 days late, that's $1,000 off their final check. And obviously, you should base that off of kind of your holding costs. So whatever your daily holding costs are, I would put that as your, let's say, to make it easy, you have $3,000 for the month, so essentially $100 a day. That $100 should realistically cover if they run over budget per se. So that's a good way to do it. And if they sign, there's not much they could do. They agreed to it. And I would, stress it to them. Hey, we are going to hold accountable to this. Obviously, if a change order happens and we're kind of on the same page, I've given, extensions as well, where it's like a change order. And I was like, okay, we have to extend it by a week. No problem. All right, we'll do it. You don't have to pay the penalties. It's all good. We'll figure it out. So that's a great way to do it. It holds them accountable and it kind of keeps everybody on the same page. I know a lot of people that just, the contractor, this is your bid, looks good. Here's your check, get started. But I always make sure to set the expectation, just like with anything else.
The biggest problem that I had when I flipped a couple properties early on was the contractor taking too long. It was literally like 4 to 5 months. And the problem that I had is I wasn't keeping them accountable. I was so busy selling a bunch of houses that it was kind of like a side thing. But what ends up happening is if they take too long, the marketplace could change. So you went from a certain valuation at a certain price, and then the marketplace changes or slows down a little bit, or all the holding costs are eating up your profits every single month. So it's costing you money. Any last tips for the viewers? Anything else that you think would be helpful?
If you haven't done a deal or you're looking to get into it, if you're young, don't let age deter you. Don't let anything deter you. Just go ahead, just start. You're never going to learn everything before you do it. So you learn as you go. You never know what you don't know, I like to say. So you're not going to know a lot. I didn't know everything when I started off, but you kind of learn as you go. You kind of fail forward and stumble and, fall and scrape your knees, but then you get up, dust yourself off, you're ready to go. So that's the only way to really learn. So if you're like on the edge, just do it, start taking the action. And then I guarantee that if you're consistent, you take the action, you're going to see results no matter what.
And where can people go to find you if they've enjoyed this interview?
You can find me on Instagram at the Vlad Plot. So that's going to be TheVlad PLOT, and I'm super active on there. People reach out to me all the time, whether asking questions and stuff like that. So if it's a good question, I'll definitely answer it. Would love to partner on deals. If you have deals in Vegas, send them my way. We'll make it happen.
Awesome, brother. Good. Well, for all our viewers, this was episode number 88 of the Morales Group Show. Today we had Vlad. He's a local investor in Vegas, flips, getting into buy and holds. And if you enjoyed this episode, make sure to hit that subscribe button. If you found value in the episode, make sure to hit that share button and share it with a friend. Once again, Jose Luis Morales, thank you so much for watching. And thanks, Vlad, for being on the show.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me.